Hey everyone, it's Liz Morris from the Nail Hub, and I'm really excited to do something new today. I am going to be starting Gel Nail Fundamentals 2.0, so we can actually revisit some of the lessons that I did. I created an amazing playlist, I believe 5 years ago was the first video. So if you haven't watched my Gel Nail Fundamentals videos, I do have an amazing playlist, but back then I really didn't understand how to do a lot of filming. I didn't know how to get great audio quality. I've learned a lot in the last 5 years. And I also just recently posted a personal update video on my YouTube channel talking about how I really want to revisit Gel Nail Fundamentals, add more based on the feedback that I got and the comments I got on the original videos, do it with better filming skills, and really dig in a little bit deeper so that you can truly maximize your education when it comes to how to care for nails. Today, we're going to start with a very, very cool topic, which is nail anatomy. Nail anatomy is so important to understand before we ever put product on our nails. So let's dive in to what the nail is all about. All right, so here is a typical nail anatomy diagram. This is usually what you'll run into if you go to nail school or if you look it up in a medical book or if you look online. And the confusing thing about nail anatomy, which we'll get into all those details in just a second, is that there seems to be a lot of difference of opinion about the different parts of the nail. So this is one of the best diagrams I've been able to find. And I wanted to show you this side view because it does allow you to see some things that aren't visible on the actual naked nail. So if we're looking at a side view of this actual anatomy here, some of the more important parts that you'll see are the matrix. The matrix is where our nail grows from. So what's interesting about the birthplace of our nail is that we can actually see the partially formed nail plate here in the lunula. So the lunula is that moon, that white moon that you might see on some of your fingers that's close to that proximal nail fold of your skin. That area right here, that lunula, is actually partially formed nail plate. So that is where that grows from. That nail plate is formed in the matrix. This is why sometimes if you've ever slammed your finger in a door or if you've damaged a finger really badly, maybe that fingernail doesn't grow like it used to anymore. This can manifest itself in a lot of different ways. It can be a nail that just has ripples in it. It might be, there might be a split down the middle of it, but the matrix really is the birthplace of our nail plate. And if the matrix gets permanently damaged, we can actually cause damage to the way that our nail plate grows for the rest of our lives. This is also something that's really common with people who pick their nails or pick their cuticles. And just constant trauma to that area can really change the way that the cellular structure starts to take form. So you'll also see the root of the nail here. And then, like I said, the lunula, which is not labeled, is that moon that you'll see on your nail plate. Not all fingers are able to be, the lunula is not able to be seen on all fingers. Usually the longer your nail bed is, the easier it is to see it, but you might see it on more prominent fingers like your thumb or your pointer fingers, but maybe not on your pinky nails. The eponychium is also a really confusing thing, and if you went to nail school or if you've studied nail anatomy, the eponychium is something that's commonly confused with the proximal nail fold. The eponychium is actually an area that we cannot see from the outside. The eponychium lives underneath the proximal nail fold, and that is where the cuticle is formed. So the eponychium helps to build a seal between our proximal nail fold and the nail plate, and the cells that are created for that start in the eponychium, which is right underneath the proximal nail fold. The proximal nail fold is the skin, and I'll show you guys real pictures of real nails so you can see exactly what this looks like. But the proximal nail fold is the skin that we can see on the outside of our finger. It's commonly referred to as cuticle, but that's actually not the correct name for it. You'll also see the nail bed. The nail bed, if you've ever torn off a fingernail, that is that part that bleeds profusely underneath the nail plate. It's extremely sensitive because we have so many nerve endings under here. And this is really the part of our finger that is protected by the nail plate. So our nail plate is this hard shell that protects our fingertips and allows us to actually protect this delicate skin underneath. And the nail plate, like I said, the nail bed, is just an area where the nail plate rests on the finger. The nail plate is obviously the part that we clip and we file and we apply product to, and I'll get into what the nail plate is made of shortly. We also have the lateral nail fold, which this is not a great diagram for this. I'll show you that in a second. We have the free edge and the hyponychium. We also obviously have dermis, we have fat inside of our finger, and then we also have our bone. All right, so let's talk about the hyponychium. The hyponychium is actually where our fingernail skin attaches underneath the free edge of our nail. So if you've ever accidentally gotten something shoved underneath your fingernail and it hurts really bad, that's because you're stabbing that hyponychium. It's basically the last edge of the nail bed. And this is also another important seal to keep dirt and bacteria from getting underneath our nail plate. So people who develop things like fungus or injuries, or maybe they have onycholysis, which I'll get into what these things are in our next video when it comes to nailments or ailments of the nail. The hyponychium is a really important seal. So we have the eponychium and the proximal nail fold on the other side, but on the fingertip area, we have that hyponychium, which is that skin that seals to our nail plate and keeps dirt, debris, and bacteria from getting underneath our nail plate. We also have the free edge or the distal edge. The distal edge is the technical term for that free edge of the nail. You'll hear me as we move forward with videos talk about the free edge of the nail a lot. The free edge is that tippy part of our fingernail. It's the part that we clip off. It's the part that we file into shape. It's the part that we're going to try and cap with product. So that free edge is a really important thing to understand, but you might also hear it referred to as the distal edge. We also have the proximal nail fold. So as you remember from my other diagram, the proximal nail fold is the skin on top that we can see. The eponychium is underneath the proximal nail fold. And this is where it starts to get confusing. So a lot of people would think that that arrow that I just highlighted, this one right here, that this is cuticle. This is actually not cuticle. It is stretched proximal nail fold skin. And the proximal nail fold is technically living tissue. It's living skin that is supposed to seal and attach to our nail plate. But obviously, as we get into nail care and product application, we want our nail to look as clean as possible. And everyone likes the look of clean cuticles, but this really isn't cuticle. So I really encourage you to actually talk about the proximal nail fold, or just at least know that what you're thinking is cuticle is actually skin. And we'll go over what's okay to trim and what's not okay to trim, because that is really the part that gets tricky when we talk about cuticle nippers and pushing the skin back and really cleaning up the nail plate and making our manicure look nice. We also have the lateral nail fold, or also it's called the sidewall. You'll hear me refer to sidewalls a lot. I normally don't refer to them as proximal nail folds or lateral nail folds or distal edges. I usually use the terms free edge, sidewall, and I'll also call it the cuticle area, because that is easier for people to understand what I'm talking about. Not many people know about the proximal nail fold. So you're learning the best of the best as far as the terminology and the correct anatomy of a finger, but you'll also hear me use different monikers for them. Hangnails are usually found in the sidewalls of our nails. They can start from either just dry skin, or there's not really a great name that I've found for the type that start from our actual nail plate. If you have shallow sidewalls like I do, this is actually my thumb. If you have shallow sidewalls, a lot of times what'll happen is the side of your actual fingernail will start to separate, and it'll start to create, almost like string cheese, it'll start to create strips of your nail plate on the side. I've heard some people refer to these as nail wicks. I just refer to them as hangnails, but you'll also see that hangnails can just be dry skin, and it's just on the actual sidewall skin of the finger. But in both situations, I usually call them hangnails. So you can see I've got a couple hangnails starting down there in the sidewall. And I've had hangnails since I was a kid. I don't know why I'm prone to them, other than the fact that I have very shallow sidewalls, and I think that my nail plate just comes into a lot of contact with abrasive situations where it starts to fray. I moisturize my fingernails. I do everything possible to, avoid these, but I've really never found a good solution to them other than keeping product on my nails. Now, this is actually my dad's toe, and I love this because my dad comes and visits me about once every 6 months or so, and every time he comes, I do a pedicure for him. So I don't have the after shot of this, but this is the before, And my dad is actually prone to very dry skin. That's very common with people as they get older, as we tend to get drier and drier skin. So drinking water is really important to help keep our nails and skin hydrated. But you'll see here a difference, a different view, right? In the previous view, I was showing you my proximal nail fold and that stretched proximal nail fold skin. That's kind of what it looks like when it starts to grow out onto the nail plate. My dad actually has more keratinized skin on his proximal nail fold. So the proximal nail fold, he still has that. It's that skin right there on the edge. It's in that cuticle area. But he also has keratinized skin. And the keratinized skin, the reason why I wanted to show you this is skin that no longer is alive. It's become dead and dried out, and it'll turn basically white when it looks like this. So this is a good indicator for you to know what you can slough off or what can be removed. It really no longer has a blood supply to it. It's no longer the same color as our skin. And this is a good indicator for you to know what is living tissue and what are dead skin cells. My dad also has a really good representation of what cuticle normally looks like. So cuticle actually is this white debris that grows out onto our nail plate. And this is really confusing because all of our tools are called cuticle nippers and cuticle pushers and cuticle remover. But a lot of people think that cuticle is that proximal nail fold, and it's actually not. It's the material that grows out onto our nail plate. We do scrape it away to make sure that we can apply a clean application of products. And we can use cuticle removers for this. Cuticle removers will also help to slough off keratinized skin cells, but it's mainly for getting that dead material off of the actual nail plate. And you can see that other than just a little bit of dryness, my dad actually has really nice toenails. They're very healthy, and he's got, just a nice shape, nice eponychium, no evidence of any type of trauma anywhere. And other than some dryness that can be absolutely remedied, this is a great example of a healthy toe and a healthy nail. So what does it look like when we push back that stretched proximal nail fold? So you'll see some similarity now in this picture to my dad's toe. You'll now see that you can see that cuticle on my thumb now that I've pushed back that proximal nail fold. So let me just go back a few slides. You'll see that you couldn't see the cuticle on my actual nail plate because my proximal nail fold likes to grow out onto my nail plate a little bit, especially when I leave it alone for a long time. So you'll see that I just have kind of this shiny skin that just tends to grow out onto the nail plate depending on, if it's come into contact with anything or not. Whereas now, if I push back my essentially proximal nail fold with a cuticle pusher, if I push back that skin, now you'll see that cuticle that is attached to my nail plate, and that is what we go in and we remove. You'll also see that my proximal nail fold is a little bit trickier. It's not as keratinized as my dad's, so I have to be extra careful when it comes to manicuring techniques because my skin really is super thin at that proximal nail fold area where it meets my nail plate, and I am very prone to bleeding easily when I try to trim my cuticles or when someone tries to do them for me, or also when I try to do any kind of e-filing manicuring. It is something that I have to be very cautious with. So you may have more of a proximal nail fold like this, where it is just a big wall of skin, and maybe you have that keratinized material that's very easy to identify, and then you also have that cuticle that's on your nail plate that's also easy to identify. Or you might have more of a finger like mine, where that cuticle really isn't apparent until you start pushing back skin. And then your proximal nail fold really does look more flesh tone, so it's harder to see what should actually be trimmed off or not. And I've actually seen very extreme examples of this as well, where the proximal nail fold can grow halfway down the nail plate sometimes, depending on how long the person has gone between manicures. And it is something that, it really differs from person to person. And we'll get into a lot more detail in this and how to deal with it as we get into our actual manicuring sessions. So what is the nail plate? There's a lot of confusion about what the nail plate is. The nail plate is essentially a ton of layers of keratin protein. It's actually made up of the same type of keratin protein that our hair is made up of. So our nail plate is just all of these kind of, I always refer to it as almost like a croissant or baklava or phyllo dough. It looks like all these kind of layers of material. but it's actually a bunch of chunks of material too. You can actually slough off singular chunks of the nail plate without affecting the rest. And the nail plate is intended to actually break off without damaging or creating splits all the way down the rest of the nail plate. So it's almost got like a relief system built into the anatomy of the nail plate and the way that the cellular structure is for that keratin protein, where if you have an impact, the nail plate is intended to actually break off instead of creating fissures all the way down the nail plate, okay? So that's a really cool feature of the nail plate, and this is a side view of a piece of fingernail, so you can see exactly what it looks like. So let's correct a little bit of misinformation, because this is something that I come across all the time. And as a professional in the nail industry, this is really important for everybody to understand, whether you're a fellow professional or you're someone who's getting services done at a salon, or maybe you're doing your own nails at home. The first one is nails need to breathe. This is absolutely false. As I said, nail plates are made up of keratin protein. It's dead material. It doesn't have a blood supply to it. The nails don't have lungs. They definitely don't need to breathe. And that's why we're actually able to put product coatings over them without causing problems. Now, our skin breathes and our nail bed has a blood supply to it, but our actual nail plate, the part that we are manipulating with nail product and manicuring techniques, that actually does not need to breathe. And the real reason why people say they need to take a break and let their nails breathe is because their nails are damaged. So this is something really important. As long as the nail plate is not being damaged, there's really no need for it to ever be exposed. It doesn't breathe, okay? Filing in one direction. I get a lot of these comments on my YouTube channel when people watch me file my nails, whether it be artificial product or my natural nails. There is actually no proof or scientific study that shows that filing in both directions, sawing back and forth, filing in one direction, or any other type of specific method actually affects the nail plate in any specific way. Remember, the nail plate is layers of keratin, and it does have this kind of relief or release structure to it where when you're sloughing off those keratin protein cells, it actually doesn't affect the rest of the nail plate. And when we're talking about applying product on top of our nails, at that point it becomes less important whether or not the free edge is smooth. So if you've ever wondered about should you file from the outside to the center or file your nails in one direction, this is actually kind of one of those old wives' tales. It really doesn't matter whether you saw back and forth or not. The biggest thing that matters is how much pressure we apply to the nail plate. Like I said, the matrix can be damaged by too much pressure or by trauma, physical trauma. Same thing if we are really aggressive with our filing techniques, we can create wiggling in the nail. We can actually pull and tug on the nail bed. We can cause separation between the eponychium and the nail plate. So light pressure is always best when we're dealing with our nails. Our nails are actually quite delicate. But other than that, you can file however you see fit. Water. Water is the enemy of nails, and it's so prevalent everywhere I go. Almost every single salon I walk into, you will find water. And I think water is something that we come across because we associate water with becoming clean. We are washing our hands, we are washing our feet, and I totally get it. But soaking your nails in a water bowl is a big problem for the nail plate. So let me just go back to my picture of the actual nail plate. Our nail plate actually acts a lot like a sponge. It can absorb water, and all kinds of things can transmit through it. Water can absorb into it, and then it can also dehydrate out of it. But water actually will make our nail plate swell. If you actually want to do a quick experiment, next time you clip your fingernails, if you want, soak that clipped off fingernail in some water for at least maybe, I don't know, half an hour or so. And then I want you to take that clipping and set it out, and you'll watch it curl like crazy. You can also see this if you ever clip your nails after you've bathed, and then maybe the clippings are still around and you find one laying on the floor and it's curled within an inch of its life. That is because the nail had swelled with water from the exposure it got during your shower or your bath, or maybe you were doing a pedicure or a manicure at home. And then once the water evaporates out of the nail plate, it will curl that nail plate drastically. When it swells, it will then eventually curl, which will cause peeling of the product, it'll cause delamination of the nail plate, it'll cause surface breakdown when the water tries to evaporate out of a nail that's been covered with product, and it can cause a lot more issues. So I highly encourage you to, yes, wash your hands, but don't soak your nails in water, especially before you are going to do any kind of manicuring or product application. One of the biggest ways that we can keep our nails healthy is to keep our nails and our skin moisturized. Moisture, just like the antithesis of water, when we actually fill our nail plates with oils and emollients, we are able to actually prevent water from penetrating our nail plate. And the same goes for cuticle oil. Cuticle oil is such a misnomer because this oil really isn't for your cuticle. Remember, I showed you cuticle is dead material on your nail plate. The oil is actually to help replace the natural moisture barrier on your skin after we've stripped it away with all of the stuff that we do during an actual manicure process, and especially with gel nail products. But nail oil, I wish it was just called nail or skin oil, because these oils not only help replace that moisture barrier on our skin, but they also help to absorb into the nail plate, and they prevent water from getting into our nail plate and causing havoc with our service. So this is something that's really important to know about what you can actually do to rehab nails, because moisture is something that is very important, especially if you're trying to recuperate your nails from a lot of damage. Here's what some of the damage looks like. Delamination is this right over here. You can see, again, just to revisit some of the stuff we talked about, you can see the lunula right here, this white moon. The lunula is that partially formed nail plate that hasn't quite fully formed yet, and it's coming out of the matrix, which is back here underneath the skin. We can't see it before it's formed. You can also see the proximal nail fold with some keratinized skin here. You can also see cuticle on the nail plate. And the nail plate looks pretty healthy to me out here, but we've got delamination at the free edge. Delamination is when the layers of the nail plate actually start to separate. Now, this can be caused by dryness. It can be caused by constant trauma to the actual nail plate, because remember, our keratin layers, and you can see that the free edge of the nail is still out here, but these keratin layers tend to break off so that they don't actually cause big cracks down the center of our nail. So this actual delamination process is kind of an important part to make sure that we don't cause more trauma to our nail plates, but it also is really frustrating if you have this issue. Now, it can be something that can be fixed with different products. It also, I think, in a lot of people, especially if they've never had products on their nails, or if they do try everything to keep their nails healthy, sometimes it just comes down to the way that your matrix is forming those layers of material, and you really can't tell that there's a lot of separation in the layers of the nail plate until they get out to the free edge and they start coming into contact with things. So think about, what your nail might be coming into contact with if you do have a lot of delamination. But another major culprit for delamination is water exposure, because those layers of your nail plate are going to be swelling with water. And then when they dehydrate, you're going to have a lot of this peeling and separation happen. And there's no amount of filing or buffing that is really going to get rid of this. And it tends to start right on the edge. And then you can see it starts to go back further and further and further. It is very frustrating. Another thing that can really damage our nails is aggressive removal. So peeling off your product or being very aggressive about the removal and the reapplication process. Our nail is only made up of so many layers of keratin. Every time we file our nails or every time we peel off our product, if you've ever been guilty of peeling off gel polish or biting your acrylics and splitting them and peeling them off in chunks, this is what happens to your nails. Your nails will absolutely take a beating, because every time you're doing that, and especially even with buffing and filing and all those things to try and make them smooth again, you are taking off layers of that keratin. Our nail actually takes about 3 to 4 months to fully form from matrix to free edge, depending on how fast or slow your nails grow. Again, seasonality and also the amount of blood supply to each finger can affect that. But usually the average is about 3 to 4 months to regrow an entire fresh nail. So if we are doing our nails every week, every 2 weeks, your nail is not actually able to recuperate fast enough to keep up with the amount of damage that the nail is being exposed to. And I'll talk about how I prevent damage in nails with the way that I prefer to apply and manipulate product. I'll teach you guys how to prevent this, but the biggest thing is don't peel off your product and be very gentle during removal and prep, okay? Knowing that your nail plate is only made up of so many layers of material, that's really important. Overworked nails, these are actually my nails after I did so many classes with students and removal and reapplication. You can actually see how worn out my nails are, okay? So my nails are so thin in this picture. Compared to the picture I showed you of my thumbnail, these nails are not happy. You can also see right here, there's overfiling that happened. This is the natural nail color that my nails should be. You can see how red and thin my nail plate is. You can also see that because my nail plate is so thin, it is no longer able to keep its proper shape. And this is really when I start to get hangnails, is when my nails are worn out. So when you overdo it, your nail plate is actually so thin that your skin around your finger is going to be able to push it and morph it into the wrong shape. Your sidewalls will get more shallow as it grows out towards the free edge. You'll start to get a lot of these hangnails and things. And, I've got some fraying skin up here, but this is a really important picture to look at because it shows you just what your nails are going to look like when they're overworked. And they get to be very thin. They sometimes start to look really shiny. And when you have nails like this, it is almost impossible to get product to properly adhere because the nails are not really able to support product anymore. So this is something you want to avoid. And again, as we get into more of these gel nail fundamentals videos, I will show you how to prevent this. But this often happens when I've had way too many students back to back, or when I've been doing a ton of YouTube videos and trying to, constantly remove and reapply. There are some products that I'll talk about as well that you can use if you do want to do your nails frequently, but this is something that I just wanted to show because this is absolutely what can happen when your nails get overworked. So I hope this anatomy lesson has been helpful to you. This is a really, really important foundational piece of knowledge before you even get into how to actually clean up the nail, how to make it look nice, or even how to apply product. The more you know about anatomy, the more successful you're going to be, understanding the importance behind every single step that we do, and also how to keep your nails and your skin healthy, okay? We're all guilty of overworking our nails. Every single person under the sun has done that at least once in their lives, and you can regrow your nails if you've experienced some damage or if you've experienced any of the things that I've mentioned in this video. Know that keeping your nails short and keeping them moisturized is a great way to recuperate your nails. And we'll be continuing this conversation in my next lesson, talking about ailments of the nail, which I like to call nailments. We'll talk about some of the common issues you can run into with nails, how to prevent them, and when you should actually seek medical advice. All right? See you guys next time. Bye.